The air was thick with dust, stirred by our footsteps as we descended the crumbling stone staircase into the underground city. My flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the walls, which were etched with strange spiraling symbols I couldn't decipher. My brother Elias led the way, his boots scuffing against the uneven steps. He'd been obsessed with this place for months, ever since he found that tattered journal in the antique shop. The journal belonged to some explorer named Harrow, who'd written about a hidden city beneath the Nevada desert, a place of impossible wonders and unspeakable dangers. Elias called it a treasure hunt. I called it a bad idea. We weren't supposed to be here. The entrance, a rusted hatch half buried in sand, was on private land, marked with faded "no trespassing" signs. But Elias had a way of ignoring rules when his curiosity took over. "It's just an old mine," he'd said, grinning, as he pried the hatch open. "What's the worst that could happen?" I didn't answer then, but now, with the darkness pressing in and the air growing colder, I wished I'd fought harder to stop him. The staircase ended abruptly, opening into a vast chamber. My flashlight beams swept across broken columns and shattered statues, their faces worn smooth by time. The journal had called this place Kharis, a city built by a forgotten people who worshipped something they called the heart of the deep. Harrow's notes were vague, scribbled in a frantic hand, but they mentioned tunnels that twisted like veins, leading to a central chamber where the heart pulsed with unnatural light. Elias was convinced it was real, some kind of artifact, maybe even a power source. I just wanted to get out before the ceiling caved in. "Look at this," Elias whispered, crouching beside a pile of debris. He held up a shard of black stone, its surface shimmering like oil. "It's not obsidian, it's something else." His voice trembled with excitement, but I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. The stone seemed to drink the light from my flashlight, and for a moment I thought I saw it pulse faintly like a heartbeat. I told him to put it down, but he slipped it into his pocket, his eyes gleaming with that reckless spark. I knew too well. We moved deeper, following a tunnel that sloped downward. The walls here were smoother, almost polished, and the symbols grew more intricate, glowing faintly under our lights. The air felt heavier, like it was pressing against my chest, and a low hum vibrated through the stone. "Do you hear that?" I asked, my voice echoing oddly. Elias nodded but didn't stop. He was too focused, too consumed by the promise of discovery. I grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back, but he shook me off. "We're close," he said. "I can feel it." The tunnel opened into another chamber, this one larger than the first. Massive pillars rose into the darkness, their tops lost in shadow. At the center stood a raised platform, and on it a jagged crystal the size of a car. It glowed with a sickly green light, pulsing in time with the hum that now thrummed in my bones. Elias stopped, his breath catching. "The heart," he whispered. I didn't care what it was. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but Elias was already moving toward it, his hand outstretched like he meant to touch it. That's when the ground shook. A low rumble rolled through the chamber, and dust rained from the ceiling. I grabbed Elias, yanking him back just as a crack split the floor beneath our feet. The crystal's light flared, blinding, and the hum became a deafening roar. I screamed for Elias to move, but he was frozen, staring at the crystal like it was calling his name. Then the shadows moved. Not our shadows, but something else, something alive. They slithered across the walls, humanoid but wrong, their limbs too long, their movements too fast. "Elias, now," I shouted, dragging him toward the tunnel. He stumbled, still clutching the black stone, and we ran as the chamber shook again. The shadows followed, silent but relentless, their forms flickering in and out of the light. The tunnel seemed to twist around us, the walls closing in, the symbols pulsing brighter. I didn't know if it was fear or something real, but the air felt alive, like it was watching us, waiting for us to falter. We reached a fork in the tunnel, and Elias hesitated, his eyes darting between the paths. The journal said the left leads to the surface, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I didn't trust the journal or him, not anymore, but we didn't have time to argue. The shadows were closer now, their shapes more defined, their faces featureless, but somehow hungry. We took the left path, running blind as my flashlight flickered again, its beam growing weaker. The tunnel narrowed, forcing us to crawl. The stone was cold against my hands, slick with something that smelled like copper. Blood, I realized, and my stomach twisted. "Keep going," I hissed, pushing Elias forward. He was muttering now, words I couldn't make out, his grip on the black stone tightening. The hum was louder here, vibrating in my teeth, and the shadows were right behind us. I felt their cold breath on my neck, though I didn't dare look back. The tunnel opened into a smaller chamber, a dead end. My heart sank as I swept my flashlight across the walls, finding no exit. Elias was shaking, his face pale, his eyes locked on the stone in his hand. "It's talking to me," he whispered. "It knows my name." I slapped the stone out of his hand, and it hit the floor with a crack, the sound echoing like a gunshot. The hum stopped, and for a moment there was silence. Then a scream. Not human, not animal, but something else, tearing through the air. The shadows surged forward, and I threw myself in front of Elias, my flashlight raised like a weapon. But they didn't touch us. They swarmed the stone, their forms collapsing into it, like water draining into a sink. The crystal in the central chamber flared again, its light spilling through the tunnels, and the ground shook harder. "We have to move," I shouted, pulling Elias to his feet. He was limp, his eyes glassy, but I dragged him back through the tunnel, ignoring the pain in my hands as I scraped them against the stone. We retraced our steps, the shadows gone, but the air still heavy with that unnatural presence. The crystal's light dimmed behind us, but the ground kept shaking, cracks spreading through the walls. I didn't know if the city was collapsing or if something worse was waking up. Elias was barely coherent, mumbling about voices and promises, and I had to half-carry him as we climbed the staircase back to the surface. The hatch was still open, moonlight spilling through it like a lifeline. I pushed Elias ahead, my lungs burning, my heart pounding. The ground shook one last time as we scrambled out, and I heard a sound like 1,000 voices crying out at once, then silence. We collapsed in the sand, gasping, the desert night cold against our skin. The hatch was still there, but the symbols around it were glowing faintly, and I knew we'd never come back. Elias didn't speak for days after that. He burned the journal, but I caught him staring at his hands, like he was still holding that black stone. I don't know what we found down there, or what it wanted, but I dream about it sometimes. The crystal, the shadows, the hum that felt like it was alive. The desert keeps its secrets, and Kharis is still out there, waiting for someone else foolish enough to find it.